Led by the Attorney General of the state of Texas, 126 GOP members of Congress signed on the back of baseless claims to overturn the election in favor of President Trump. Ultimately, the U.S. Supreme Court rejected it, effectively ending any further efforts to nullify the election. But Trump supporters are vigilant, and some are actually calling for secession from the union. Also, today, under Operation Warp Speed, the FDA rolled out the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine to help stop the spread of COVID-19. But 1 out of 3 Americans are skeptical and don't want to take it at all. Are we officially a divided America? This is Stay the Water, and I'm your host, award-winning Dr. Eric Claville, and we want to hear from you as we discuss and inform the public about these and other important issues, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Stay the Water, and I'm your host, award-winning Dr. Eric Claville. We hope that you had a phenomenal week, and as always, in this holiday season, we wish you the very best with your family and with all that you've accomplished this year. We know it's been a hard year for all of us, and our slogan here at WNSB, Blazing Hot 91, is that we'll get through this. But this week has also been very, very exciting for us political junkies, but also a little worrisome as well, based upon the actions that we've seen, still coming from this election. I mentioned earlier, I said, are we officially a divided America? And this is, sometimes we'll throw this out and you'll hear pundits talk about this particular issue, but, they'll say it tongue in cheek. But now, I think we're really at a point where we have to ask this question. Are we truly a divided America? And I'm going to talk about the lawsuit that was filed by the Texas Attorney General to the U.S. Supreme Court. I'll also talk about the actions after that particular filing of the lawsuit. And I'll talk about also COVID-19 and Operation Warp Speed and the reactions of the citizens of the country. But we want to hear from you. 757-823-9110. 757-823-9110. Now, again, I want to thank all of the listeners for listening to Stay the Water, all of you for your support. It's been absolutely tremendous. We started out this summer when we launched at a 30-minute commentary, and because of the tremendous support, we went to an hour, and the calls have been coming and the great comments, and we're really thankful for you. So if we don't get to your call, please stay on the line. We are doing our very best to give everyone an opportunity to voice their opinion, because this is a call-in show, and we want to hear from you. So be patient. We're going to get your call in, and we'll try to limit the comments to no more than 60 seconds. So when you do call in, I want to hear what you have to say, and then we'll yield and give it to the next listener. But again, thank you so much for your tremendous support. Without your support, Save the Water wouldn't be what it is. WNSB wouldn't be what it is, and definitely the Spartan Nation wouldn't be what it is. But we've got people that are listening from all over the country. We had a caller from the state of Florida that listens to us online. So people are listening, not just here in Florida, but across the Southeast, across the South and the West. So again, thank you for your support. But I want to dive into this idea of a divided America, because this isn't the first time that we've been divided. And you know that I'm a student of history, and I like to look at these issues from the prism of history, also law, policy, politics, and also how we interact as human beings, human behavior. And when I talk about divided nation, immediately I go to the U.S. Civil War, when we were divided, and the talk of seceding from the Union. Now, this isn't the first time we've had talk of seceding from the Union. And it's usually when one side doesn't get their way. And it's usually the side that ends up losing. And unfortunately, we knew that in the South, where they actually lost the war. But I think they actually won in a lot of instances. The messaging, as we look at Jim Crow and the like. But before I get there, let's take a look at what happened this past week. So the Texas Attorney General, the leading counsel, the legal counsel for the state of Texas, drafted a lawsuit and filed it asking the U.S. Supreme Court to nullify and stop the electors of the Electoral College from casting their votes in favor of Joe Biden of the battleground states that he won. Now, not the state of Texas, because he won the state of Texas, but the other states in which he won: Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. And stating baseless and fraudulent claims that have been stated before and have not been proven at all, that the reason why these votes should not be cast is because the election was fraudulent. And not only that, but also giving way to the state legislators, giving them the ability to cast the vote, the Electoral College votes for President Trump. Because ultimately those bodies are Republican run, those legislators, and ultimately you would think that the Republican legislators would end up casting for the Republican candidate at that particular time. So that's the idea behind it. So for those of you that are not familiar with the process of elections, let's take a quick look at what the Constitution gives each state. The Constitution gives each state effectively the ability to run their own elections. That's where sovereignty comes in. And then through various acts and policies, each state creates a process in order to hold a fair and free election. Of course, the Civil Rights, the Voting Rights Act gives teeth to the enforcement of that. So if someone is abridging your right to vote, you can bring an action under the Constitution and more specifically under the Voting Rights Act in order to challenge that. And it's been very successful. We've seen that, of course, with individuals very recently in history where polling places were actually limited in North Carolina, where the federal court actually stated that it was the legislature during that time period was with precision, surgical precision to limit and to stop the African-American vote in those areas. Also, Texas was a part of that. So we've seen that challenge recently. And of course, in history, we've seen it through poll tax, grandfather clause, and the like. So you can bring a challenge, and the challenge can, if your election process is not free and fair and your voting is abridged by some form or fashion in that particular state. That was not the case in this election. So the state also has protocols in order to stop what we call faithless electors. Faithless electors are those individuals that do not cast a vote for the candidate that wins the majority vote. Okay? So therefore, if someone goes in and says, hey, I know that Joe Biden won, but I'm going to be a rebel and I'm going to cast my vote for President Trump, under the state protocol and processes, the state can go back and correct that and cast a vote for the person that actually won the majority. So that's the issue of faithless electors. So the United States Constitution, along with the Voting Rights Act and policies and procedures, give states sovereignty in order to draft and processes in order to hold fair and free elections in their state. In addition to that, if it's not done, then the Constitution gives you the right to challenge that under the Constitution itself and also under the Voting Rights Act. And therefore, it will be enacted and corrected to where you are able to cast your vote free and fair. So the absurdity of the Attorney General, based upon that quick that synopsis of how the election process works and the power that's given to the states, the audacity of the Texas Attorney General to file a lawsuit asking to nullify the other states' process and to basically jump over and nullify their sovereignty was absurd. But what was even more absurd? First of all, I can't believe that the state of Texas allowed the attorney general to do that. You know, I mean, the legislators and the leaders of that particular state should have been up in arms saying, what are you doing? You know, this is not something that we should be doing. And again, I'm giving an analysis here based upon the law and the policy, not on my opinion. I mean, this particular, based upon the law, based upon policy, based upon the Constitution, based upon the federal acts, this lawsuit was absolutely a waste of time. And some believe it was a black eye to the democratic process of our country. You know, we stand and say other countries that are ran by dictators, other countries that are ran by individuals that don't respect, you know, the rights of individuals to be free. You know, we are a democracy. We are the light upon the hill. Shame on you, China. Shame on you, other countries that are communist or ran by dictators or that abridge the freedoms of individuals or what we call human rights. But we do something like this. But what even I think what is even more absurd is that you have now almost 2/3, 126 Republican lawmakers who actually signed on of support in order to give this lawsuit some type of credibility. And of course, here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, we had 4 Republican lawmakers in Congress do so. Also in the state of Maryland. And you can go to the Washington Post. You can go to any newspaper. They'll show you who those individuals were. It's not like they were hiding anything or anything like that. As a matter of fact, they wanted their name to be seen, you know, for the most part, because they wanted to show the president who was supporting him and who wasn't. Right. So this isn't anything you're outing anyone. This is just simply, you know, the process. But they signed on. And let me say, if you're going to support something, hey, why not go all out and do it? I mean, so hats off to them for putting their signature where their heart is and their mouth is, right? So they signed this. And of course, it was filed. And on Friday, the U.S. Supreme Court, which is majority conservative, by the way, it's 6-3 conservative. Of that 6-3 conservative, you have 3 that were appointed by this president. And they basically said you don't have standing, which, of course, I articulated in the very beginning of this, where the state of Texas had absolutely no business filing this because of state sovereignty. So that was the right call. It said that you did not have standing. But in effect, what the Supreme Court was saying is we don't want to hear this anyway. And it was kind of saving face, you know, to those individuals that signed on into this Texas Attorney General, I believe, that actually filed a lawsuit. So with that being the case, now you have the President of the United States is tweeting out saying the Supreme Court is hiding behind the legal doctrine. I'm saying legal doctrine. He didn't say that, but hiding behind standing. And won't listen to the American people, won't listen to a case that's an election that was the most fraudulent election in the history of the country. But still, according to, I listened to Chris Christie when he's on the morning shows. He said, listen, he wanted the president to win too, but if you got proof, show it. And that's what everyone's been asking. Show the proof. But no one's able to give any proof. And any type of person that comes up and says, oh, I saw this or I saw that, is quickly disproven. So with the filing of this lawsuit, with the signing on of 2/3 of the GOP, the Republican Party, to support it. And keep in mind, this is not the first time the Supreme Court rejected this type of filing. They also rejected another filing, and Justice Alito, who is, in my opinion, the second most conservative on the court next to Justice Thomas, basically said that we don't want to hear this. It was effectively a one-liner of another challenge to the Supreme Court. And with that being the case, the question becomes, where are we headed now? Is this dividing America up and down the line? Because in effect, you've got individuals who are part of this party that are Trump supporters. Because again, within this, you have what we call Trump supporters and you have conservatives who are your traditional Republicans, right? These individuals that believe in fiscal conservatism, which clearly was not the case in this presidential term. And I hope that when we talk about spending to help people through social programs, help people to get a hand up, not a handout. Talk about this when we talk about creating a stimulus bill that actually works. I hope that the lawmakers on the other side of the aisle hold these individuals accountable to show that when they had all the purse strings, they had the White House, they had the Supreme Court, they had the Senate, they had the House of Representatives. They opened up the purse string. They wrote bills and they spent money for their own needs and for the individuals who are in the top 3% that only benefit, giving them an effective tax cut to where we borrow $100 billion per month pre-pandemic to make up the shortfall. And you have the audacity to bring up fiscal conservatism when all we want to do is help people pay their rent. All we want to do is help give food on the table so that everyone will have at least a good Thanksgiving or Christmas. What you want to do is stop the ability for individuals to make a little extra money during this time of the pandemic where they can't go out and work. People want to work. There are people that had great jobs. They love their job, but they simply can't because of the pandemic. So I hope that individuals are held accountable when we try to pass these bills to help people, again, give them a hand up, not a handout. Because we all need a hand up at least once in our life. None of us get to where we are by ourselves. Contrary to popular belief, I pull myself up by my own bootstraps. Well, somebody had to buy you the boots, somebody had to buy you the straps, and somebody had to show you how to tie them. So let's get that myth out of our dialogue that we have here. But I digress. So now, that's not enough. We have all of these baseless, fraudulent claims that are being spoken, and they're being spoken by individuals who are officers of the court, lawyers. And the top law legal organizations actually said, listen, as lawyers, you guys need to stop this. You can't use the court to prosecute baseless claims and use the court to push things that are not truthful. Because when you sign your name onto a petition, you are now saying that you have done the proper investigation of facts and law in order to bring this to the court of law, in order to have a civil discussion about it under the law before a judge or jury. And that has not been the case. So they're pushing these baseless facts, and people now they're believing it. And why wouldn't you believe somebody who's part of your party, right? Why wouldn't you believe someone that you actually have voted for? Why wouldn't you believe someone that you've seen come up through the ranks of politics, come up through the ranks of public service, people that you've probably actually gone out and helped and voted for and helped to knock on the doors and so forth? Why wouldn't you believe them, right? So with that being the case, you have individuals that are now pushing this fraud and causing people to think that their country is not working for them. And in effect, it is working. It is working. We had an opportunity. The most people in the history of recent elections voted in this election. That's a win for democracy. That's a win for our process. That's a win for one man, one woman, one vote. That's a win for the values that we profess to the rest of the world. That's a win for American exceptionalism. So for individuals to say otherwise because they didn't win, I think it's a black eye. And I think we need to hold their feet to the carpet and hold them accountable for these statements that they're making and these moves, because we're causing America, and we're all part of this American experiment, this American experience. We're causing America to lose its luster. We're causing America to lose its glory. It's causing America to lose what we show and what we see in the people that come here and the people that are raised here, that you can be and do anything that you want to do because you have these opportunities, you have these rights. But by dividing, and the reason why we have this American experiment and it's working is because people believe in the process. But when you have these baseless claims, it destroys the process. It destroys individuals. The reason why we are so successful, because we believe in it. We believe in it. So where do we go from here? Are these tweets dividing America? Are these baseless claims dividing neighbors, dividing family members, dividing couples? Is it dividing universities? Is it dividing the workplace? Do you find it hard now to talk to your neighbor? Do you find it hard now to talk to your family members? Do you find it hard to even talk with your loved one or your spouse that, maybe you guys hold different beliefs as it relates to this? What is this doing? Well, I tell you one thing that is doing, and we want to hear from you in the next hour very quickly. 757-823-9110. 757-823-9110. We're talking about a divided America. Are we divided? Is the election and the things that are taking place in the courts and in the streets and the protests we're going to talk about in just a second, is it causing America to be more divided? Are we headed for a 21st century civil war? And also we'll talk about COVID-19 in the next hour and Operation Warp Speed and the information or misinformation about the vaccine itself. But let me finish up and talk about the actions that are coming from this misinformation. Now, just this weekend, you had another major rally in Washington, D.C. and the state of Washington. As a matter of fact, 4 people were stabbed and 1 person was shot, because of these rallies. You had Air Force One, Marine One. I'm sorry, it's the helicopter. Air Force One, of course, is the jet, the airplane that our president rides in. But Marine One flew over the rally, in Washington, D.C., where they were. And it showed that we have the leader of the free world, the leader of our country that supports these rallies, supports this misinformation. And by him flying over it, that gave them encouragement to say, yes, we're doing the right thing. But are they doing the right thing? Is that the right message to send, not just to your supporters, not just the people in America? Is that the right message to send to our children and the people in the rest of the world? Because they are looking at us. Listen, we don't operate in a silo. We are interconnected through globalization, and people look at America saying, people actually grow up saying, I want to go to America. I want to leave my country of origin. I want to come to America because of how great it is. The opportunity. Now, of course, nobody's perfect. Nothing's perfect. As African Americans, we know that very well, but we still believe it. We still strive because this is the greatest opportunity that we help to build. And when someone tells us, go back to your country, tell them this is our country because we built it from the ground up. But is this the right message to send? So you had rallies, Washington State. You had rallies, Washington, D.C. And again, we have the freedom to peacefully protest and the whole peaceful rally. So it's nothing against rallying. But the reason why you're doing it, why are you doing it? That's the issue behind it. But not only that, Unfortunately, it did get violent. Like I said, you had reports of 4 people being stabbed, 1 person being shot. Of course, we had about 28 arrests in Washington, D.C., according to Mayor Bowser, who's Muriel Bowser, who's the mayor of the District of Columbia. You had all of these issues pop up that nobody's really talking about, right? Because of the misinformation that is dividing America. And not just that, but we're not just talking about the rallies and the actions of people, but we actually had the chairman of the Texas GOP party, Republican Party, Allen West, who was a former, of course, he's a retired Army officer, former U.S. Congressman out of the state of Florida, and he's considered what we call a black Republican, and he's the chair of the GOP party in Texas now. He actually stated, after the U.S. Supreme Court rejected to hear this baseless claim, which was the right thing to do because they did not have standing to do it, he said maybe we should, all our states that believe that the Supreme Court is not doing their job, maybe we should form our own country. We should secede from the Union and form our own country. But not just him, but you also had Rush Limbaugh mention it on his show. Maybe he mentioned secession. Now, he said he was just mentioning it, but Rush Limbaugh's been doing this a long time. He knows exactly when he makes a statement. He knows exactly what that statement is for, right? So he even made a statement saying, oh, maybe we should, what about secession? Some people are talking about secession. And I'm just bringing it up. I'm not saying we should secede, but when you drop a seed, he understands when you drop a seed of misinformation, a seed of information, it germinates in the minds of people. And it causes them, it takes root and it causes them to go into action. And that is the danger of what's happening now. Keep in mind, in 1861, we had the first shot fired, the actual shot in Fort Sumter, South Carolina, which started the Civil War. But we had the first legal shot, which was the Dred Scott case, which is, of course, many constitutional law scholars, and I teach constitutional law myself, I believe that it is the worst case decided by the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, Plessy versus Ferguson was right behind it, and of course, a lot of other terrible decisions. And recently, I believe Citizens United, 2009, was also a terrible decision. But Dred Scott was the worst decision, not only for what it stood for, but the actual statement that was given by Chief Justice Taney. He said that there are no rights any black man has that any white man is bound to respect. He wrote that in the U.S. Supreme Court decision. It's there for eternity or as long as this country is here. So it was that belief that started the movement to secede from the Union. It was that belief that started to say, as Southern states, we're not going to have anybody else tell us what to do. So I see that same root, that same seed that's germinating here in our country now, where we have some states that are saying we're not going to have a federal government or anybody tell us what we want to do or what we're supposed to do. And people moved on that. Family members, they fought in the Civil War. They killed each other, cousins, brothers, sisters, uncles. They fought for that belief. And that's the danger of where we're headed for a divided America. So what happens now? How do we now combat a divided America? Or are we actually there? We want to hear from you. We're going to go take a quick commercial break, but coming back, we want to talk about this issue. So get ready. I want you to get to your phone calls, 757-823-9110. Now, when we come back, I want you to call in and we want to talk about, how do you feel about the lawsuit that was filed by the AG? How do you feel about what the president is tweeting? How do you feel about the rallies that are taking place? The statement by Allen West saying that we should secede from the Union. The implementation of Texas Independence Act, Referendum Act that's being put forth in the state legislature? And of course, how do you feel about the results? And when we come back, we want to hear from you. 757-823-9110. 757-823-9110. This is
Blazing Hot 91.
Your blazing hot music spot.
I'm DJ INC from the Top Ropes.
I'm Cheryl Wilkerson.
Make sure you wake up with us.
Monday through Friday.
6 a.m. to 10 a.m.
With the Blazing Hot Morning Show.
I'll tell you why every day's a holiday.
I've got your entertainment and your news.
And we've got the legendary DJ Heart Attack.
With the Blazing Hot Morning Shower Mix.
And live on-the-spot weather and traffic updates.
So go ahead, start your day with us.
Monday through Friday.
6 a.m. to 10 a.m.
With the Blazing Hot Morning Show.
Right here.
On Blazing Hot 91.
Hi, it's Dr. Eric Claville, award-winning host of State of the Water, where we bring policymakers, movers, and shakers to you to discuss real issues and current events impacting African Americans. Tune in every Sunday at 1 o'clock here on WNSB Blazing Hot 91. State of the Water is engaging, educational, informative, and impactful, an initiative of the Center for African American Public Policy at Norfolk State University. Welcome back. You're listening to State of the Water, and I'm your host, award-winning Dr. Eric Claville. In the first half hour, we talked about the lawsuit that was filed by the Texas AG in order to throw out the votes for the states that were contested, and we're talking about divided America. So we want to hear from you, 757-823-9110. Right now, we have a caller on the air. Caller, you're on the air. Give us your name and where you're calling from.
Tim from Norfolk.
Tim, thank you so much for listening and calling the State of the Water. What's on your mind?
First of all, I want to say I thank Trump for running because he woke a lot of people up, a lot of black people up to politics. Never seen so many African Americans talking about politics ever. Everyone's talking about it. I don't know if that's because of the internet or just the times we're in now, but it woke a lot of people up. And first of all, I want to thank that because now we're looking at everything, whether it's Democrat or Republican. We're looking at everything across the table now. So I really do think that waking it up. So that's what I would start off with that.
Okay. And then also, do you think that, that's an interesting point, and I want to talk about that off air because you bring up a very important point where, in effect, he was the best thing for America because he woke up a sleeping America. But at the same time, just like waking up a sleeping bear, there's an after effect to it. So do you think that the actions of the president and what he's done has divided America? Or do you think that this is who we've always been?
I don't think it has really divided America. I think it woke a lot of Americans up. Now, it depends on what his purpose was to go up in. Therefore, of course, he laid out, hey, he was going to put out what Hillary Clinton was about with the wall and whatever his agenda was. And the other stuff, you gotta look at everything that went on. I mean, hey, if you send the other party spied on him, if you say Hillary even did the steal dossier, signed that paperwork, then that's unfair. I mean, hey, if you sign that paperwork and I'm running against you and you do a case against me and we still two people running for this office, wow, you just open a can of worms on me, and I haven't even, that stuff is so deep that you really have to be paying attention to look at everything that's going across. And you got to look at both channels, CNN, Fox, all of it. You can't just look at one thing and say, oh, I'm just a CNN person or I'm just a MSNBC. You got to look at everything and then really open your mind up.
That's right. That's right. You bring up another good point. And before we go, I want to ask you this question, which I'm asking all callers. The COVID-19 vaccine is out. Are you taking it? Why and why not?
Okay, as a military member, we had to take the anthrax shot. There was no, you had to take it.
That's right. No ifs, ands, or buts.
So as a military member, and I'm going to tell you right now, front line, whoever's on the front line, you got a military card. It's a heavy military town. So you're going to get that shot, and it's coming. So you just get prepared for it, roll your sleeves up, you can have your arm or have it in your butt, whichever one you want.
And look,
you're going to get that shot.
And look, Tim, as former military, I remember you went through a line and they shot you with all these vaccines before you went to travel. So, and look, it only did good for us. But so Tim, thank you so much for calling and listening to State of the Water. Have a great day.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
The caller brings up a very important point. He said that he doesn't believe America is divided, even though I do disagree. I think we are divided down the middle. I think the numbers do show. But he said that Trump woke up Black America. He woke up Black America because he hasn't, right now, as the caller said, so many African Americans are talking about politics. They're engaged, and that's a win. I have to agree with the caller. That's a win. That's a win for America. That's a win for Black America. That's a win for African American communities. That's a win for democracy. Now, of course, if you want to keep power and keep it consolidated, it may not be a win, right? Because again, with power, when you get the masses involved, that's another issue for another day. But that's a win for us because, as he stated, now we're listening to all sides. We're listening to the Democratic side. And we talked about in a show previously, we talked about the Black vote just last week. Are we getting the value for our vote? And, we concluded we're not. The evidence shows it. So now we have to start demanding even more so for our vote. And this even highlighted the fact that Joe Biden, President-elect, was not appointing the people that we wanted or fast enough as many African Americans. So we still had to fight, even though we voted for him in overwhelming numbers. In addition to that, he said you got to listen to the Republican side as well. So what are your thoughts? Where are we with this? Are we in a divided America? We've got a caller. Caller, you're on the air. Give us your name and where you're calling from.
Hello, sir. This is Leonard from the city of Portsmouth. How you doing?
Brother Leonard, thank you so much. I'm doing great. You're on Stay of the Water. Tell us, what's on your mind?
I just quickly want to say what a magnificent job you guys are doing at WNSB. Keep doing what you're doing, and I fully support it, okay?
Brother Leonard, thank you so much for the support, and we wouldn't be what we are without listeners like you.
All right. I just want to quickly say that I could trace back the division in this country all the way back to the Reagan years in the 80s when I was matriculating at Norfolk State. I wasn't really into politics at that time. I was just a young Black man trying to earn my degree.
Right.
However,
like all of us.
However, I did see, his campaign for trickle-down economics, and it just didn't seem to work. I do remember when Clinton got into office and they were investigating the Whitewater scandal and the Monica Lewinsky scandal and the freshman Republicans in the Congress were behind Newt Gingrich in this endeavor to to penalize this dude. But I think that I would have to go back to with Obama. I think it opened a lot of people's eyes, this division in this country, because Mitch McConnell said that he was going to be a one-term president. There were just people in the Congress just would do anything to stymie all of his endeavors. And so now we have President Trump that it seems like people are celebrating all of those negative attributes he harbors, like the racism and xenophobia and sexism. So I just want to say that, yes, in a fearful concern, this country is divided. Yeah. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you, Mr. Leonard. And lastly, I'm asking every caller, we got the COVID-19 vaccine rolling out. Are you taking it? Why and why not?
I would take it with caution. I will observe other people who take it before me. Then I'll make a final decision for myself. Thank
you so much for listening to Save the Water. You have a phenomenal day.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Well, the caller mentioned he went back, and I love that, going back in history, going back and looking at former policies and comparing and contrasting. And Leonard talked about the Reagan era. Trickle-down economics, which again is trickle-down economics is a story about being at a bar, having a napkin and having a drink and a pen, right? That's where that idea came from. Thinking that you give the money, the tax breaks to the people that quote unquote need it the most, the rich, and they know how to make money and they'll spend it. And then what end up happening, they'll innovate and the profits and so forth and innovation will trickle down to those at the bottom. But in actuality, it stopped right at the top. Trickle-down economics is voodoo economics. That's what I call it. And it's the same thing that's happened over and over and over again. Even now, during the Trump administration, where those tax cuts came for the top 3%. And those individuals got tax break top 3% that are permanent. The tax breaks that everybody else got, there's a sunset. There's a 7-year sunset on them. So in 7 years, it's going to revert right back to where we were before. And from that, we're borrowing $100 billion a month pre-pandemic. I want to make that statement and go back. Take a look at the CB Congressional Budget Office and the governmental report, the GAO, that shows that we're borrowing $100 billion per month pre-pandemic to replace the tax cuts that the top 3% got. And of course, we saw in the Panama Papers, they're not keeping it here. They're kind of moving it offshore to kind of keep it to themselves. But even going back to there, America was divided even under the Bush tax cuts. Now the father Bush, he said he would lower higher taxes, but he had to. He did the right thing, but unfortunately, it cost him the election. But every Republican president since Reagan, they've been cutting taxes, and cutting the base and the foundation to help our nation with our programs to give people a hand up, not a handout. But then you go back to when he talked about Mitch McConnell saying Obama's going to be a one-term president. And we had a caller last week that believed that the Affordable Care Act was the worst piece of legislation signed in the history of our country. And I had to disagree. What the president wanted to do was give people health insurance so that if you got sick, you can actually get treated, right? You had something to help you. And of course, it wasn't perfect. Of course, it needed to work out some kinks like every single thing. You think a car rolls off with a new design and there are no recalls on it? We got to see how it goes. But that doesn't mean throw the baby out with the bathwater. That means you work on it and you tweak it and you make it better. And that's what we should have done. But unfortunately, the Republican Party for 8 years said we're going to replace and repeal, or repeal and replace, repeal and replace, repeal and replace, repeal and replace. They win the election. They get the House. They get the Senate. And what do? Mitch McConnell says, we're not going to do anything. So they lied to the people. They sowed a seed of discord. And if you go back, this is Sunday. So if you go to Proverbs and talk about he that sows seeds of discord, the Lord sees that as an abomination. He just doesn't hate it. It's not a sin. It's an abomination. So we got to watch what we do when we speak and we talk these words and we sow these seeds. What are we doing? What are we doing? So then from there, America became divided. I remember Arlen Specter, former U.S. Senator out of Pennsylvania, was holding a town hall when they were trying to get the Affordable Care Act, go out and sell it to the community, saying this was a good thing. I remember a lady standing up saying that she didn't want Russians taking over her country. She didn't want to see tanks rolling in the street. And Arlen Specter was like, "What are you talking about? Tanks rolling in the street? We're just trying to give you health insurance." But those were the talking points, the fear mongering from Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity and all others that were saying what was going to happen if we passed the Affordable Care Act. First of all, they're taking over your health care, and now they're telling doctors what they have to do. Well, I go to the doctor and he kind of tells me what to do, so I believe him, right? But then you have this fear mongering, and people react upon it, which is the same thing that happened, the exact same thing that happened in Washington, D.C. and Washington State. People are reacting on it. But are we in a divided America? The caller believes that, yes, we are divided. But the question is, are we divided, or is this what we've always been? And the president just simply exposed it. 757-823-9110. 757-823-9110. Are we in a divided America? What do you think about the claims of this being a fraudulent election? And what do you think about the actions of the Texas Attorney General? And from that, do you think that it's time for some states to secede from the union? What Alan West stated, the head of the GOP, chairman in the state of Texas, and mentioned on Rush Limbaugh. Where are we at? 757-823-9110. We want to hear from you. So, again, I go back to the Civil War that we had in this country, the rebellion that we had. And one of those things that was really, when you go back, of course, none of us lived during the Civil War. But when you go back and read the records, when you go back and look at the history of it, you see how damaging it was to our country at that time period. Because now, based upon a belief, people are willing to pick up arms and go and fight against their own blood, not an enemy per se, but their own blood, and to fight against them and to divide a country that was really, we were starting to get our feet up under us, starting to stand up on our own too, after breaking away from Mother England and Great Britain, because again, we did come from Great Britain. That is our mother, right? The American Revolution, we fought and we broke away from them. But we've been a country of just rebelling against certain things, if you go back and take a look at history. But from that time period, people took up arms and said that based upon this belief, we're going to fight. We're going to fight and have the country that we want to have. And of course, in the Commonwealth of Virginia, we know very well that this was the capital of the Confederacy. And we also know that we've had a reckoning with those monuments that were erected after the death of Robert E. Lee, who was general at that particular time, and also said that he believed that it was a mistake in order to fight the Civil War. And they did not erect statues until after he was dead because he was adamant against that. That's a part of history. That's in the history books. Read it. It's there. And then, of course, we have a reckoning with those. And now we're at a point where we're having a reckoning again. So it's one thing to have your own beliefs, your feelings, but it's another thing when you read facts. You read facts and you understand that factually what is happening should not be happening. Factually, what individuals are saying, they should not be saying. Factually, the reason why people are protesting, they really shouldn't be protesting on that particular issue or fact. But you got the freedom to do it, but make sure that your actions are well grounded. So, are they well grounded? Where do you think that we go from here? Are we in a divided America? 757-823-9110, 757-823-9110. We want to hear from you. What really caught me off guard, was the talk of seceding from the Union. And coming from Alan West and others, I started to scratch my head saying this is extremely dangerous because you have people who are willing to take up guns now. You have people who are willing to protest. You have people who are willing to do whatever it takes to, quote unquote, stop the steal, which is, again, is false. We have even the heads of the agencies in Georgia saying, please stop. We have people who are being followed home, who are working, just doing their jobs, and they're fearing for their lives. They're saying, please stop doing this, because the belief that these individuals have, because they believe in our country being taken away from them, is causing them to react in a way that could be damaging. And not could be, but I believe that it is and will be damaging. So now we move forward. And how do we heal that? Well, President-elect Joe Biden believes that the way to heal this, and he's going to be a unifier. And it's funny because the last two Democratic presidents that we've had, both President Obama and now President-elect Joe Biden, have both had to be healers of our nation because of the two Republican presidents that we had prior to that. Now, I'm not saying that's a coincidence, but it's a fact if you look at the trend. But he believes that he has to be a healer of the nation by bringing individuals in who's able to repair that which, quote unquote, has been broken. Individuals who are able to, cause individuals to look, not just people in our country, but outside of our country, to look at our country as being the great light upon the hill. He believes that he has to bring people into the administration who are able and have the expertise to deal with a pandemic that should not have been, according to the records. We knew about this back in December. And again, the White House ignored it. When it was in the coast, we could have started wearing masks. We could have started social distancing at that particular time. We could have taken less time to get these safety measures up. We could have encouraged people to follow the protocols, just like we did in 1918 during the Spanish flu pandemic, 1918, 1919, 1920. But we did not do that. We failed to do it. The president failed to do it. The White House failed to do it. And even members of the intelligence community knew it, and members who were part of that group. That's why, right now Purdue and Loeffler, the Senator Purdue and Loeffler in Georgia, are under attack for selling their stock because they knew. Even though none of us knew, even though they were telling us everything's fine, they were selling their stock in certain companies because they knew that the economy was going to take a hit. So they wanted to save themselves first, even though we were being told by their own party that everything was okay. Again, we're looking at the facts. So we have to heal that divide. We have to heal that hurt. After all the lies, after all the misinformation, after all of the tearing down, after all of the negative information, the snarky remarks, and just the blatant disrespect of individuals on a human level, we have to heal. And we have to heal, and the only way that we could do that and heal is if we bring people in to our administration and our government that believe in the American system, that believe in what we're doing, that believe that this America is worth saving the process for, so we can actually have a civil discussion about our disagreements. Again, it's about saving the process. Believe what you want. Be a Democrat, be an independent, be a Republican, be an agnostic, be a Christian, be whoever you want to be. But we need a process we can come and talk about these differences and hash them out. And at the end of the day, to turn around and respect each other because we are human beings, because we are Americans, because we are Virginians, because we are operating in a nation. That is dependent upon people cooperating together because we are that great country. We are that America that people thrive and say, I'm going to save up my money and come to. People say that we are the America where you can come and get an education, a higher education. The degrees that our students receive here at Norfolk State University, they're part of the top 6% of our country, of our world, with college degrees. Those college degrees gives them the opportunity to go out and make a difference in not just their lives, but the lives of others as being servants, public servants, private companies, and doing a job and doing it at a high level. And then we're not even going to talk about getting a doctorate or a master's degree or professional degree, being in the top 1%. But this is the country that gives us the opportunity to do that. So it is worth saving. So if it's worth saving, then is it worth dividing? We can't do that. We can't divide the nation. We have to respect each other. 757-823-9110. 757-823-9110. What do you believe? Are we in a divided America? And if so, what can we do to heal our America? And COVID vaccine, Pfizer, I want to talk about that. Right now, under Operation Warp Speed, the Pfizer vaccine has been distributed. We have FedEx and UPS that are delivering these vaccines to various states here. The Commonwealth of Virginia should receive our doses, if not by today, definitely by tomorrow. And individuals on the front line will receive those first. Individuals who are first responders, individuals in the hospitals, our doctors, our nurses, and many people are losing their lives trying to help us to fight this. Individuals who are paramedics, firemen. I have all of these individuals in my family as well. And, these individuals have put their lives on the line to do their job. And they're still doing it, but they need our help as well. We still have to wear our masks. We still have to social distance. We still have to take precautions. We still have to wash our hands. And we still have to, even if we are healthy, we have to do it because our loved ones or people that are around us in society may not be as healthy. So we have to do what we have to do to protect them. And again, going through history, there's nothing new under the sun. We did this in 1918, the Spanish flu pandemic. The Spanish flu pandemic, unfortunately, if we go back and take a look at history, it killed, if I'm not mistaken, about 1/3 of the population in the world. 1/3 of the population in the world. And it devastated remote populations such as the Native American population. There was a documentary that was done about, I believe, the Navajo Nation, and it was on C-SPAN 3. Again, you guys know one of my favorite stations is C-SPAN 1, 2, and 3. You can get the history, these documentaries, great documentaries with C-SPAN 3. You can get the book, C-SPAN TV, C-SPAN book review, all those great things that happen, all on C-SPAN, by the way. So you can get it online as well. But again, it showed the devastation, that this particular flu virus that we never saw before actually took the toll it took. And keep in mind, during that time period, we were also fighting the First World War. So it had an opportunity to spread because of us being in close proximity together. But we learned a lot from it. And we learned that you can't be close together when you're battling this flu. We learned that if you simply just wear a mask and cover up when you're coughing and things of that nature and have circulation in the air, then it doesn't spread as much. We've learned this before. This is not some conspiracy theory. This is not something that is made up. This is actually fact. We've seen this before. So we want to know. With Operation Warp Speed, the vaccine is here. They started giving the vaccine, I think, about maybe a week and a half or 2 weeks ago in the UK. I think the first person that received the vaccine was a 90-year-old grandmother in the UK that received the first vaccination in England. So the world is looking to help and stop this pandemic from getting this vaccination. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of, now those are the facts about when it's coming and when it's coming out. But there's a lot of information out there about, of course, you have anti-vaxxers, people that just don't believe in vaccines at all, even though, the polio vaccine actually helped to eradicate polio. We get all other vaccines, chickenpox and all that good stuff. And those vaccines, they do help. They do help. Now, again, everybody's body responds differently. And I'm not giving medical advice on this particular show at all. So I want you to do your research. I want you to adhere and talk with your medical physician, your doctor, your family doctor, and make the best decision for you in your life. I'm just talking about now the history and going through this process. But even with this, there's a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of other information. And I want you just simply to look at what's true. And not just take a clip off of online or social media and say, I'm going to live my life based on this, whether I'm going to take the vaccine or not. Because ultimately, we want to be healthy. Ultimately, we want to get through. But the vaccine is going to be here, and we got to give it to the first responders first. And then from there, the most vulnerable population is going to receive it. Those individuals who are in the nursing homes, those individuals who are taking care of the individuals in nursing homes. And unfortunately, this virus has devastated our nursing homes. You have individuals that are there. They're in very close proximity. Unfortunately, they are older and their systems are not as healthy. And once it gets in, it spreads like wildfire. And it just has devastated a lot of our nursing homes across the country. So we definitely want to, again, take care of our elderly. If you have elderly family members, whether it be your mother, your father, your grandparents, your aunts and uncles, or even your elderly neighbors, do something nice for them. Just go out and knock on the door, put something on their steps, say, listen, I brought this for you. I just want to say hello. Or can I take your trash can out? Can I bring it back in? Just something, or give them a Christmas card, something just to brighten their day. Because ultimately, we all need, to be known that somebody cares about us. We all need to be loved. We all need that personal touch to say that, hey, I'm just not here existing, but I actually matter to somebody. So in all this, and I know we've been through a lot this year. And I know there's been a lot of nastiness that has been going on across the airways. And unfortunately, a lot of people use social media to spew out evil words and things that are just not uplifting at all. And just terrible, terrible things. And we saw it from the highest office in the land. We saw it from the White House. We saw it down from the president and the like. But again, we're all in this together, and we want to utilize, our resources. We want to use our intelligence. We want to use everything that we are just to do good and tell somebody, hey, you matter. To tell someone, hey, we're going to get through this. To tell someone, listen, I know you may feel down and discouraged right now, but no matter what, You may believe this. I may believe that. You may vote for this person. I may vote for that person. But ultimately, we're in this together. This is our America. We built this country. We're here, and we're here to continue to make this country as great as it is. And again, we thank all of you for listening and supporting Stay the Water. We couldn't do it without you. We couldn't be who we are without you, the listener. So I want you to continue to have an incredible week. Continue doing the best that you can do, and we'll see you next Sunday at 1 o'clock. I'm your host, Eric Claville.